Lore Friendly episode 87, I believe.
6. I think we did 85 last week.
But we did a special Star Wars episode with Skinny Tech Boy, so I think that counted as 86.
Oh, right, okay.
You weren't around. I asked everybody who wanted to join, but you did not respond. You were busy.
Mate, I only have one night a week to record things. This is the night.
Yeah, I think Skinny Tech Boy was disappointed. He thought you were coming on, and instead it was Unoctium.
Aww.
Instead, Unoctium's like, I'm here.
I'm very sorry that I did not turn up, but I only have one night a week to record.
Yes. Your time is precious. It's very hard to schedule these things. That's what I tell people who want to join in. Plus, it's our sacred time.
Oh, dear.
We only have 5 more of these, so it's just... It's very precious.
Yeah.
Did you get the present I sent you yet?
The Hodor doorstop, yes.
How is it? It's an absolute unit, isn't it?
It really works really well, but my housemate is also a big fan of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And I didn't tell her that I was getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Because she does not know the specific intimacies of our relationship, Chris.
Yes. She doesn't know how sacred this is.
No. So it just turned up one day, and I just sneakily shoved it under the kitchen door. And she was cleaning the kitchen because she's a better housemate than I could ever hope to be.
Mm-hmm.
And she just looks down and she sees it, and she just bursts out cry laughing. It's it's too soon, Alice. It was 2 years ago. Get over it, mate.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but it still feels too soon. And speaking of which, this next episode kind of feels like a precursor of just a lot of feels.
Yeah, it is setting up people to die.
Yes. And it was a very character-driven episode. And so on that note, instead of going through it chronologically, I thought it'd be better if we just kind of focused on each individual character.
Yeah. Let's go Dance and Dragons style instead of chronological style.
So is there a specific character you want to talk about first?
I don't know. I don't think there's anything that I want to... Well, there is one thing that I want to focus on in particular, but...
Should we just get right into it?
No, I need to build up my rage
Okay.
for it. We need to do the compliment sandwich style of podcasting.
Okay.
In that I compliment it a little bit, I mention some things that I enjoyed, and then I ruin it for everyone.
Okay. Should we start with Sansa then?
Yeah.
Or is that part of the
That wasn't...
meat?
No. Well, I'll get into it later on.
Yeah, so we started with the scene where Jaime arrives and Sansa and Dany agree for the first time, which is kind of interesting. They were like, we both hate this guy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
And also understandable.
Yes. But then we get the moving speech from Brienne, which we'll get to later on. But afterwards, Dany visits Sansa and attempts to reconcile with her, right?
Yeah, we got off on the wrong foot. And have you ever heard of the Bechdel test?
Yes, it has to do with whether a woman is talking about a man.
Yeah. It has to have a conversation between two female characters that isn't about a man.
There you go. Thank you for explaining.
And it annoyed me because Sansa and Daenerys, as characters, have a lot of common ground. They've lost the majority of their family. They're both trying to make their way in a society that is not made for them to be successful within
Patriarchal.
Yeah, they're both women who have managed to grasp power and are successful commanders. And it was like, oh, but you're dating my brother. Oh, Tyrion's a really good dude. And it's like, they could have talked about anything else. And I think there was one bit where they were like, yes, we're both women making our way in a world that's not made for us. But that was one sentence in a 2-3 minute long conversation. The rest of it was about the fellas in their life. It's like, no, these are independent characters who are autonomous of their relationships to these men.
Yeah, and they do have stories that kind of parallel each other almost in that they were forced into these marriages against their will, and they sort of found their way out of it and became independent, strong women who, are leaders in their own right,
Yeah.
right? And
that's so much common ground that they could have talked over, and that was where they should have been clashing. but the way that it's being framed is that they're clashing over the fact that she's dating my brother.
Also, the point at the end, which caused like their warm moment to sour. Sansa's like, okay, what about the North? Are we going to be free? Are we going to be independent? But that seems like something that should be addressed later on, maybe. I mean, it doesn't need to be brought up now because there's no guarantee Dany even survives, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, I actually enjoyed that character moment because it reminds Daenerys that, yeah, she's got a temporary alliance, but the people of the North, they're not very loyal to Jon. They're loyal to Sansa.
Right. But see, I thought you would hate that because she said it outright. You know what I mean? Because last time we were talking, you were saying that, she's more subtle, that Sansa as a character has more politicking in her.
Hey, at least it's consistent with the last episode. And here's my first minor gripe for you. Sansa has the loyalty of the Vale as well.
Ah, true.
So it should be, what about the North and the Vale? Just a little gripe for you there. You know?
I do find all this politicking a bit odd considering the circumstances. There's this real ominous thread out there.
They're all still concerned with the politicking.
Yeah, they're all still kind of playing the game, right?
It's like, now is not the time for it.
Yeah. So I do kind of relate to Jon in that sense, because he's always kind of complaining. It was like a meme, right? He'd always say, Army of the Dead, or whatever, right? And Jaime's in that kind of headspace too, I think. Like, in the beginning, he's like there, standing there. He's like, yeah, I don't like you guys. I don't want to align with you guys. I'm for my family, but Army of the Dead.
Bigger issues here, Yeah.
But circling back to Sansa, the other sort of touching scene she got was seeing Theon again, and they kind of embraced and all that. What did you think of
I think that means that Theon's gonna die.
Yeah, because this is another kind of interesting thing that happened throughout the episode. None of the Starks, had a final moment together.
No.
But Sansa, they showed her with Theon at the end, right? Like,
it implies to me that the Starks are going to be okay for now.
Yeah. You didn't get the touching moment with Sansa and Arya at the end. You got the moment with Sansa and Theon, which, I mean, they have this shared bond from escaping Ramsay together. They're both survivors, right? But still, it's the night before the possible end of the world. The fact that they focused on that might have been a little bit of foreshadowing,
Yeah. It makes me feel like Theon's not making it out of the series alive.
Yeah. It does fit a redemption arc for him to be protecting Bran after what he did originally.
And you know what? That was a really nice redemptive moment.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed that. What I don't enjoy is Bran's emotionlessness. What were we saying last week? Maybe the confrontation with Jaime will make some emotion come out of him. If that can't do it, nothing will. You know what? Nothing's gonna do it.
Yeah, what was the point of him waiting out there all that time?
None. It was like, oh, maybe he is going to have an emotional reaction to it. No.
To be fair, we did get some memes out of it, so it wasn't totally bad. One thing that Bran mentioned, speaking of which, is I don't know, do you want to go into the Night King thing?
Yeah.
Okay, because he mentioned the Night King's motivations and that he wants Bran dead because Bran represents the past. He has the memories of Westeros in him. And yeah, other than that, he just wants to wipe everything out. So,
well, that's the thing. Human history is a set of memories. He is like a living record of man's history in Westeros and Essos. So it makes sense. He's symbolic.
There's also the Citadel.
Yeah, but he can just burn the Citadel. He can just burn the Citadel to the ground, not Cyrodiil.
Yeah,
lol.
He's gonna burn the Citadel and Cyrodiil. It's gonna be him and Alduin. They're gonna team up. Crossover.
What if Alduin is it Viserion who's the one who's like the ice dragon? Crack the code. Coming in 2020. Game of Thrones / Bethesda crossover. Boom.
So maybe that's it. Maybe the Night King is not only hunting Bran, he's also a book burner. He's just like the worst.
Yeah. He's somebody who like failed history. He got an F in history once. And he was like, well, we don't need no history. Never.
He's a Philistine. He hates art. He's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
God.
Ugh.
Unless it's like flesh art. Then he's like a big fan.
Yeah. He's a big fan of organic art.
Yes.
human organic art.
And another interesting theory that we saw on Reddit is that he's not actually there in Winterfell.
No.
He may be headed towards King's Landing.
Yeah, because let's face it, an army of dead people is pretty big.
Yeah.
He can send off a considerable distraction, and it's kind of like what Rob did at Wolfswood.
Yes.
It's echoing that, where he sends off a diversion army and then he takes them from behind, which is how Jaime got captured in the first place.
Yeah.
All the way back in, what was it, season 1?
Yeah, because I did think it was super conspicuous that he was not there at the end of the episode where, you know, all the White Walkers were lined up.
He had all of his generals there, and that Viserion wasn't there.
Yes, that was super conspicuous.
Because let's face it, the first thing you're going to see of the Army of the Dead is that fucking dragon.
Yes, yes.
So I quite enjoyed that theory, honestly, because obviously during this episode, we didn't get a single shot of King's Landing.
Yes, I think it's true. I think he's headed there.
And he's headed there where Cersei's dragon-killing crossbow is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think definitely Cersei's going to turn into a white because the prophecy about her death, which says, "And when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his shall wrap his hands about your pale white throat and choke the life from you." So whatever kills her, I mean, if her throat is pale white, does that not imply that she is a White Walker?
In the books, she's always described as being very ethereally pale. Her skin is described as milky, things like that. So, because paleness was an attractive quality in medieval cultures, because it proved that you weren't a labourer.
But it could have like a double meaning. It could also mean, you know, she has a pale beauty about her, but also that she's a White Walker.
But if she's a White Walker, strangling ain't gonna kill her.
True, maybe the Valonqar, Tyrion or Jaime has, like, I don't know, fucking gloves made of Valyrian steel.
I feel like it would be more poetic for her to be alive to see her death.
Well, she'll be alive to see her death, but then maybe the second death? I don't know.
From the Valonqar that she's feared so much.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, that could be true. Yeah, that's probably true. But we do agree that the Night King is probably headed to King's Landing, right?
I think it's a fun theory, and I think it's got basis. I don't know if it's 100% got ground, but I like the theory. It's like how I like the Bolton theory. It's where the Boltons are skin-changing vampires.
Oh, okay.
That's one of my favourite theories. I also like the Tyrion the time-travelling fetus theory.
Oh, interesting. Let's not get into that one. That one sounds
crazy.
It's
like one of the theories is about Sansa's suitors, and it's parallels with the tourney at Harrenhal.
Mm-hmm.
There were 5 competitors, I think. So it was a Baratheon, Joffrey Baratheon. She had Tyrell, Willis Tyrell in the books. She had Harold Harding, who is the heir to the Eyrie. And then there was a Targaryen. Maybe it was 4. I can't remember if there was 5. It's been a while since I've delved into Game of Thrones series. But that's a theory that I feel like has legs in the same way that the Night King is going to King's Landing theory has legs.
Yeah, here's the thing. How else would it play out, though? Because if the Night King is in Winterfell, then either he wins, and then at that point he's just going to steamroll the rest of Westeros, or the forces of the living, Jon and Dany and all them win, at which point Cersei has the upper hand, and she can basically conquer Westeros. So I think the only pathway for the people in Winterfell, for Jon and Dany to win this thing, is for that army, the Night King's army, to split up.
And they do have enough soldiers to do that.
Yeah. So I think that it's a viable theory just logistically in terms of like how to find a pathway for success for the characters that we actually root for, the good guys. But speaking of Lannisters, how's that for a segue?
Lovely.
Jaime, the man who arrives and apologizes profusely to everyone.
For all the shit that they have done.
Yes. Which is interesting. And, you know, Sansa and Dany are grilling him, at which point Brienne, the one person that he's kind of befriended through all this, stands up for him, and it's a really touching moment.
I love Brienne and Jaime scenes.
Yes.
As a Game of Thrones fan, as a Song of Ice and Fire fan, I have my ships. I have the ships that I enjoy. And Jaime and Brienne is the only mainstream one that I enjoy. My favourite Sansa one is fucking Sansa and Willis Tyrell. And we haven't even seen Willis Tyrell in the books yet.
Yes. Him and fake Aegon are somewhere off.
Yeah.
Having their own adventure.
Their own gay adventure. Ooh.
Yes. Now you're talking ships.
They're going to be kings of Westeros.
Oh, yes. But yes, Jaime and Brienne.
I love their dynamic.
Yes.
It is one of the things that has stayed consistent through the series. Like, a lot of the other characters, their relationships have wavered or have been flanderized a little bit. Like Tyrion and Pod.
Yes.
Whereas Jaime and Brienne's, I feel, has stayed relatively consistent throughout the entire series.
Yeah, they have this sort of sitcom-esque relationship where they start out kind of a little bit rough and, you know, they're always insulting each other, but then they kind of grow on each other through both their adventure, their experience, and also just they kind of like each other in that way. Yeah, it's just the personalities kind of vibe also, I think. But they relate to each other in a way that is beyond, I think, what Jaime loves Cersei, but with Brienne, I feel like it's someone that could be his partner and his best friend in a way.
Yeah.
And that's something that you kind of like value. They share the same ideals, whereas with Jaime and Cersei, Cersei is always kind of conniving. She has a lot of her father in her, and Jaime is this. He tries to be an honorable man, no matter how much the fates kind of conspire against that.
Yeah.
He tries to be honorable, and he wants to be good.
Especially in later seasons, yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that Brienne has too, and I feel like that's what makes them a good partnership in that sense. And it sort of all encapsulates into that great, amazing scene where he knights her.
Yeah, that was the standout scene.
Incredible.
And that indicates to me that either Jaime or Brienne is dying.
Oh, for sure, I would put my money on Brienne because...
Yeah, because I feel like Jaime's the Valancourt.
Yeah, there still is a lot to go in terms of Jaime with both Bronn and with all of that stuff. With Brienne, this felt like a final thing. She's knighted. It's a very like emotional, joyous moment in a way for her. And there's also like interesting lore bits too, because when he knights her, he calls her the Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and that's basically the name of George R. R. Martin's novella series.
Yeah.
And she's descended from Sir Duncan, who's like the main hedge knight.
Perhaps.
Yes, perhaps. I think George confirmed that.
He said that somebody in the series is descended from Dunk, and Dunk is described as being huge.
An absolute unit.
An absolute fucking unit. And I think... I think it's in A Feast for Crows. Mm-hmm. Brienne has her shield painted over, but she doesn't paint it over with the arms of Tarth.
Mm-hmm.
She has it painted over with something else that resembles Dunk's invented arms, I believe. And it's been like 2 years since I read A Feast for Crows, but I can remember something about that in the theory.
I read a blog post where he basically confirmed it, but it was spoken, so there's no like actual video record of it. Someone asked a question from the audience that when will we learn for certain that Brienne is the descendant of Duncan? And then he said, in some future book or something like that. That was a quote that was attributed to him at a convention. So I don't know how valid that source is, but that's...
But it says, when will we learn for certain? Because it might... there's the slim chance that it might be completely debunked.
yeah.
Dedunked.
Yeah. The other thing that's an interesting parallel with that whole Duncan egg thing is that, you know, Duncan was a hedge knight for a young squire who ended up being the king, but Podrick is kind of a squire for Brienne, right?
Yeah.
And Podrick also sings the song, Jenny of Oldstones.
Yes, Jenny of Oldstone.
And that also relates to the story of Duncan Egg.
Yeah, Jenny of Oldstone, she was basically the instigation for what would eventually accumulate as being the events for Robert's Rebellion. Because Jenny of Oldstone's brought a witch to court, And Jenny of Oldstones, her witch, she prophesies that the prince that was promised, aka Azor Ahai, will be born from Prince Aerys's and Rhaella's Targaryen's line. Which, of course, are Daenerys' parents and Rhaegar's parents.
Right. It's even hypothesized that Rhaegar, a singer, maybe wrote the song, right?
Yes. Yes, I have actually read that, yeah. Because he was a bit of a singer.
So there's a lot of lore ties. It's because that's what our show is called. It's called Lore Friendly. We try to be lore friendly. We only make up shit half the time.
The style of the song, though, it reminded me of Home is Behind from Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Like, home is behind the world ahead.
Yes, it was kind of lifted from that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the way that the song was used with the montage over different people spending their last minutes before battle was also very similar to its usage in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Maybe it was an homage. But I thought for a second you said Homer's behind, so I was picturing Homer Simpson's ass.
That's why I thought that you were laughing.
I was like, Homer Simpson, what does he have to do with this? What does his ass have to do with this?
What's ass got to do with it?
But speaking of ass...
No, hang on, before we leave Jamie, there is one minor nitpick that I have from the dialogue, between Tyrion and Jamie.
Was it
where
the dragons?
when Tyrion said, well, the Northmen know what happened the last time dragons came to the north. You know when the last time was that the dragons came to the north?
Never.
Queen Jaehaerys and good Queen Alysanne, where they visited the wall and they were loved by all and they were really nice set of characters, and they donated some of the ruling Stark's land to the wall. And yeah, the ruling Stark, he was a bit miffed about it, but they didn't burn anyone.
Yeah. The original conquest with Aegon, right? They kind of saw the dragons and saw like what they could do.
And that didn't even happen in the north.
Right.
No, they actually met in the Riverlands.
Yeah. And they knelt, right?
Yeah.
They didn't fight.
Torrhen Stark is the king who knelt. And so no Northman has ever been burnt to death by a fucking dragon.
To be fair, they have made Tyrion look quite stupid in these last few episodes, so maybe it's just on brand.
Yeah, but then they have every single character constantly sucking his fucking dick.
Yes.
Sansa, he's really nice and he's really intelligent. Jorah, I don't like him, but he's really clever.
If only Jorah knew that Tyrion didn't know shit about history. He's just dumb as the Night King. He's a book burner.
Yeah, exactly. Tyrion's a secret Night King agent.
Yes. He hates books.
Yeah.
That's why he sat by Bran at the end. He wanted to just, like, fucking learn the real history before he destroyed it.
Everything!
Yeah,
so I think that's my most petty minor gripe from the episode.
Speaking of Tyrion, the one thing I did like was when they were sitting by the fireplace and he started saying, I think we might live. I mean, he's kind of said it sarcastically, but then he started reciting all the ways that plot armor has saved them.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that was like a fourth wall breaking thing. He was talking about plot armor.
His and Arya's plot armor is ridiculous.
Speaking of Arya, do we want to go down this?
Right, let me just fill up my glass a sec.
Yeah, let me take a shot.
No, honestly, since I got back home and I rewatched the episode, I needed to have a couple of glasses of wine to, like, process it. So, Arya and Gendry, I think it's always been a really fun coupling.
Yeah.
The way that they've addressed it grosses me out. Because, right, so, first things first. Arya has been on the show and she has canonically been 11 years old. She's around 18 years old now. And this is Benioff and Weiss. They had to confirm on Twitter before the episode air. Arya is 18. But we have not seen any romantic inclinations for Arya since
No.
season 2. And so, for her to just spring on Gendry's dick,
Yes.
it's very out of character. There's been no build. It's not been what her character arc has been about. So that's point number 1. The second point is that I find it incredibly skeevy that the 2 young female actresses that they have had on the set since they were kids have been written into sex scenes. Which
Yes.
does, again, skeeve me out because they've known Sophie Turner. Sophie Turner's about my age now.
No.
But when it was airing, she was 15 when the first season came out? 14? Something like... No, 13 maybe. I'm not sure. And Maisie Williams is a year or so younger than her. And it skeeves me out that those are the 2 longest standing cast members who have been on the cast since they were kids. And they thought, well, as soon as they've come of age, let's write them into a sex scene. Now, admittedly, Lee Sawyer's was consensual.
Yeah.
But they haven't done the same for Bran.
Exactly.
Because it feels like it would make as much sense for the way they've written Arya's sex scene for Bran to have a sex scene because they're both emotionless robots.
Yes, that is true.
And the third skeeve that I have about it is that it is a really bad idea to try and lose your virginity before a battle as a girl. Right, I'm going to educate you about the female reproductive system, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
Please.
there's a reason why they say that the cherry has popped, and that is because there is a very fine layer of skin over the hymen, which basically, after your first instance of penetrative sex, it tears. And that's why they call it popping the cherry, because blood comes out. Because you've torn the hymen.
Yes.
And it's painful. It is really fucking painful. I was in pain for like 2 days after I first did the day. She's not going to be able to walk straight. Unless Gendry is so tiny that he wasn't able to rip it in two. Although, I will praise the scene for this, right? Arya looked really dissatisfied afterwards. Which, you know what? That is a realistic depiction of losing your virginity. Because you're not going to enjoy it. As a girl.
To be fair, Gendry is not the most experienced. I mean, he did say 3 times, but, you know, he's just...
I don't know, that's a lot of practice.
Could have been lying. I mean, he's like one of those teenage boys who's like, yeah, I've had tons of sex. I love sex. Just do it all the time. Going back to point 2, it did make me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that was mostly on me in terms of just seeing her as a child and knowing her as a child. I don't know.
Yeah.
It super made me uncomfortable.
And it's the fact that it's been... that the showrunners have known her as a child as well. And yet they chose to write that scene for her.
And Gendry, too, he's 31 now, and he was 21 or whatever when she was 11. So he's watched her grow up while he was an adult the whole time. So, like,
you can tell by the framing of it that it wasn't written to make you feel uncomfortable. But, like how Sansa's scene with Ramsay was designed to make you feel very uncomfortable and very grossed out.
Yeah.
But this, I feel like because the intention to skeeve you out wasn't there, it somehow makes it worse.
You know what she should have done? She should have swapped her face with Walder Frey, and then it would have been totally fine. She's like, I'm Walder Frey now. That was my British voice again.
I did really enjoy some of the accents in this episode. I like the little Geordie girl who Davos was talking to, but we'll get to her later.
Yeah. Point 3, I think, you mentioned the virginity thing. I think that's just a blind spot for D&D because they're men. Yeah, they need to consult a woman like, hey, okay, we're going to have Arya lose her virginity. Would that make sense?
It could make emotional sense, but in terms of physical, it's a very bad tactical decision.
Mm-hmm. And point 1, what was point 1 again?
Point 1 was... oh shit, I can't remember. I have been drinking. It didn't make sense for her character.
Oh, right. It totally didn't make sense for her character because she's never been the romantic type, but I do appreciate the fact that she has been lately kind of appreciating her human side or embracing her human side. So I do like the fact that instead of hanging out with the Hound and Beric and these old men who want to die and think nothing about war and death, that she chose to do something that normal teenage girls do. which is be romantic with somebody they like. So I do appreciate that aspect of it, but it was kind of weird and uncomfortable.
I feel
for
like it
all
could
the
have been
reasons
framed
involved.
differently. Because it didn't need to be so explicit. I feel like it would have been far more humanizing for her to kiss him. Just kiss him.
Yes.
And be shy about it. I feel like that would have been... Because that would be her first sexual experience.
Yeah, it would have been.
She hasn't even been kissed.
That's true.
And speaking as somebody who has been a teenage girl...
Yes.
Yes, not
Lots of
as
experience.
traumatized or as has had such an awful life as that. But you don't go from a 2-second kiss straight to penetrative sex.
Yeah, especially thinking about the war that's coming later. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I still gotta be a little bit practical. I still want to have these human things, do human stuff. You know, maybe play charades or play Twister or something. I don't know. She could have done a lot of things that humans do and felt more human. You know?
Yeah. It didn't need to be sex, that's the thing. It would have been far more effective and far more emotional if it had just ended at the kiss.
Yeah.
And then, you could have shot to the screen of her looking slightly disappointed in the bed afterwards. And it would have still got the message across far more effectively than jumping into a sex scheme that feels skeevish
Yeah.
would have done.
They could have also just had her turn into Walder Frey. That also would have worked.
Yeah, that would have worked so much better. I would have loved to pay. I would pay to see that, mate.
Yeah, it's like you take off your pants and I'll take off my face. Anything else on Arya or Gendry?
I'm just skeeved out by it, mate. I'm just skeeved out. Although I did appreciate Sophie Turner's reaction to it on Twitter.
Yeah. She's amazing. I love Sophie Turner.
So it's Easter, so the Easter Bunny gave us that pussy.
Yeah. And that's the tea.
Sophie Turner is an angel and we don't deserve her.
So moving on, you mentioned the crypts. That's another major plot point, is that everybody is going to be safe in the crypts.
Everybody's going to be saved in the crypts.
Where all the dead people are.
But I liked the little girl, the little Geordie girl. I think it was either Geordie or Liverpudlian. Which, I feel like it's more Geordie than Liverpudlian. So, allow me to explain. Let's get into
Yes,
some...
please.
Let's get into some dialect talk
Those
here.
words made no sense to me.
Right, so Geordie is the accent from Newcastle, which is really far north in England. Now, most of the northern characters have Yorkshire accents based off of Sean Bean's own natural Sheffield accent. Geordie and Newcastle is far, far further north. So to have the little girl saying, "Oh, well, what am I meant to do? I want to go fight with my brothers."
Yeah.
It was very Geordie, and I was like, oh, I'm appreciating the diversity in the accents this season. We're going even further north. Maybe she was an Umber from Last Earth.
Oh.
Who didn't get killed.
Yeah, there was kind of like a nod to Shireen because of the facial scarring and her talking to Davos.
Yeah.
So
I miss Shireen.
Yeah, I miss her too. It was very touching. One thing I find interesting is everyone, they assume they're going to be safe in the crypts, but can the Night King resurrect the dead in there? Because...
I think it has to be dead that he or his... I think it's like zombies.
Oh, we're not going to get a zombie Ned Stark is what you're saying. No zombie Lyanna Stark, no. Because that would be terrifying.
Ned's bones have all been stripped, and Lyanna will have decomposed by it since then.
Okay. No decomposed skeleton, I guess.
Well, we have proven that it has been proven that skeletons can resurrect, but I think Ned Stark's bones actually go missing.
Oh.
Because Littlefinger delivers them to Catelyn, and Catelyn sends them up north, but I don't know officially if they ever get properly interred. Because I think in the books they've kind of gone missing. Somebody's stolen Ned Stark's bones.
There's a bone thief out there.
I think it's Lady Dustin, but that's going into the whole Winterfell conspiracy that never emerged in the TV show, because in the TV show they don't care about the politicking of the North.
So we're not going to get zombie Ned Stark or zombie Catelyn Stark or zombie Bran the Builder. No zombie Starks.
I don't think so, But Maester Lewin mentioned in season 2 that there were secret tunnels from which the Starks could escape in the crypts. So maybe that could be an entryway in.
Because they are really sort of hammering home this fact that everybody's going to be safe in the crypts. And, you know, the people in the crypts are going to need protecting. And that was kind of the excuse that Davos gave the kid. And also Samwell's going to be down there. Samwell had that touching scene with Jorah.
It's like Helm's Deep.
Yeah, and where he gave him the sword.
Yeah.
And mentioned his Jorah's father. And, of course, mentioned that his weapon was made of Valyrian steel because that's what everybody does. When you have a Valyrian steel sword, you just tell everybody about it.
That shit's expensive, yo.
It's like being a vegan. You
just gotta let everyone know.
Yeah. It's Valyrian steel, by the way. I am no stranger to Valyrian steel.
A la Joffrey.
Yeah, it's really, really expensive and nice, so don't lose it, I guess is what they're saying.
Oh, you know who I miss?
Who?
Joffrey. He was such a good villain.
Oh, yeah, he was. I like how this episode kind of tied a lot of the characters together, both living and dead. So when we're talking about Jorah's father, we're talking about like the Mormonts and that whole relationship.
That was something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
The little tiny Mormont family reunion. But you know what I think Lyanna should have done? Say, oh, fuck off, you slaver. Because that's why he got exiled in the first place, because he was a slaver. And the TV show's forgotten about that.
Although that would probably make Lyanna even more of a badass trope, a one-note badass. At least just being
that's
nice
the thing.
to her
I
cousin.
think Lyanna's going to die.
Yeah.
I think Lyanna's up for the chop.
Yeah.
In the Battle of Winterfell.
Is. You know who else made an appearance? Ghost.
Whew. Oh god, he actually appeared.
But he just appeared on screen and that was it. It was just weird. What was that
Because we haven't seen him for like 2 seasons, I swear.
He just showed up.
Maybe he's going to start eating some White Walkers.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all. Like, there was no reunion, there was no nothing. He was just there. He's like, hey, it's Ghost. He's been here the whole time.
Yeah, it was very understated. And it was upsetting because it was so understated. Because I love the direwolves.
Yes. Who doesn't love them? They're just big fluffy puppies. And
maybe that's why Bran's so emotionless, because Summer died.
Possibly.
Oh shit. You know how the Starks are all wargs?
Mm-hmm.
What if Bran's soul flitted over to Summer and then Summer got torn apart with Bran's soul inside him?
That would be very sad.
And then that's why Bran's so emotionless now. Because he literally doesn't have a soul. He's just a vessel for the three-eyed raven.
Yes.
Woo!
It's strange that he's even speaking words. He should just be the whole time. Jamie's like trying to have a heartfelt conversation. He's like, Bran, I'm really sorry I pushed you over the ledge. And he's like, Jamie's like, whoa, you really aren't a human.
Oh, I fucked you up. I fucked you up bad, man.
The last character we did not talk about yet is Jon. And I guess he finally reveals to Dany who he truly is. And nobody cares about the incest. That's not the first thing they focus on. The first thoughts always go to the throne. Never the fact that you are my aunt or you are my nephew. It's just... But yes, what did you think about that scene?
He is not called Aegon Targaryen.
Oh.
Even if Rhaegar had picked out the name, he already had a kid called Aegon.
You don't plan on naming your kids the same thing?
No. Because if Rhaegar had said, this is what I want my kid to be called, if he had said that to Lyanna, then his other 2 kids would still be alive. He would still have Aegon and Rhaenys. And I said the whole issues with the way that they're presenting the Lyanna and Rhaegar storyline anyway last week, so I'm not going to repeat myself.
Maybe his name is Aegon 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Nah.
Can you imagine if he said that? My real name, Dany, is Aegon 2 Electric Boogaloo. Targaryen.
I'd be more accepting of that, honestly.
And then Daenerys is like,
what the fuck?
What's an electric boogaloo? Wait, what? She would be in such shock. She would forget about the whole like throne stuff. She would forget about the whole like heir to the throne. She'd just be concentrating on the boogaloo part. It would be completely shocking.
The thing is, though, like, there is such an easy solution to that, and that is to just let them get married. Joint monarchs, it's happened before. Maybe not in Westeros, but in real world history.
It does demonstrate her sort of need to be the queen, to be the sole ruler, because she kind of did not take it well.
Maybe that's why she fancied Jon, because as a bastard he has no power base of his own, really.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it's pretty clear that anytime someone mentions subverting or usurping her power, like with Sansa, the scene with Sansa, she kind of like went cold when she mentioned the North. The scene with Jon, when he mentioned his lineage, she was like, whoa, no, I'm queen. You're a bastard. It's very cold, and the whole episode kind of felt like she was an outsider, despite the fact that she's here with her armies and all that, and she's willing to fight the fight. There was no like scene with her kind of connecting with her people, like her with Missandei or Grey Worm. There was nothing.
Also, again, shout out again for the northern racism.
Yeah. So it did kind of feel a bit off in terms of that. The whole episode was about this warmth and this almost like a memorial for these characters we're going to lose, but hers kind of scenes were always about her place in this Game of Thrones, more or less.
Yeah. And again, I think Daenerys' focus on the throne and the constant referencing to the Seven Kingdoms in this season, I think, alludes to the fact that we're not going to have an Iron Throne at the end of it.
No.
That there will not be a Seven Kingdoms.
Didn't she see in the House of the Undying or something that the Iron Throne would, I don't know.
Be covered in snow and ice.
Covered in snow and ice, there you go.
Which again is one of the main factors alluding to the Night King going down south.
Anything else about that scene or Jon in general and Dany in general?
Honestly, I felt that was how maybe Book Daenerys would react.
Yeah.
So you know what? Yeah, and she actually showed some form of emotion, so well done to Emilia Clarke for emoting for once.
Any other thoughts, like on the fireplace scene, on anything else, or are we good? We good to wrap?
On the fireplace scene, I have Tormund's exact drinking horn.
Where did you get it?
I got it for my birthday.
Oh, nice. It's the exact horn?
Yeah, pretty much. But I have that, and so I think not for next week's episode, but the week after, I might drink from that whilst I'm recording. Because for next week we may be going to that viewing party that I was talking about.
Oh, nice.
With the food.
I really liked Tormund this episode. That whole the scene with Brienne when she got knighted, and he's like clapping, supporting her with this like childlike emotion.
Bros. I love Tormund.
And his whole story about how he slew the giant and bedded his wife and then woke up like suckling on her teeth because she thought he was his baby.
You know what? Great. Tormund's portrayal in the show, because Tormund is portrayed in the books as just telling tale after tall tale after tall tale. And I think the show does fantastically at portraying that he's probably bullshitting like all the time.
Yeah.
So you know what? Props to the show. I don't say that very often, but props to the show.
He's amazing. I love also the way he gets everybody's name wrong. Like he called Jaime the King Killer.
Yeah.
He's like me. He's like, I always get things wrong. But, it's okay. It's part of our charm.
Mm-hmm. That is.
Any thoughts on this love triangle between Jaime, Brienne, and Tormund? Is it not really a triangle? Is Tormund just standing there?
Yeah, Tormund just standing there watching and clapping.
Yes. To be fair, he's a great clapper, and he's very enthusiastic, so we love Tormund here.
I mean, it's clear where Brienne's affections lie.
Yeah. Are you prepared for next week? Lastly. Because this was the calm before the storm. The storm is coming.
Right.
Winter is coming.
I think the ending point we should end on is who we're predicting to die, not in the entire season, but in the next episode. I think Theon.
Theon and Brienne, I think, for sure.
Theon and Brienne.
Right? None of the Starks, because they had no touching moments.
I predict Lyanna Mormont.
Good prediction.
And perhaps Grey Worm.
Yes, they've definitely hinted at Grey Worm. He's had scenes that kind of seem disassociated from the rest of what's going on in Winterfell, but...
Well, they had the I'm one day left from retirement conversation.
Yes. What about Jorah Mormont?
I think Jorah will be fine. I think the tragedy for the Mormont family will be Lyanna.
Who else did they sort of hint? The Hound, possibly?
No, the Hound didn't have much of a moment. And that's the thing about the Hound. Why hasn't he been reunited with Sansa yet?
Not sure.
You know what the most popular ship in the A Song of Ice and Fire fandom is? Sandor and Sansa. Yeah. And that is because Sandor represents her sexual awakening. And she always thinks back to him, but the show's kind of glossed over that a lot, so maybe I can understand why they've not had a reunion scene, because they've not interacted.
Does Gendry survive?
No.
Yeah, I don't think he does either.
I think Arya will try to save him in pursuit of that sweet, sweet orgasm.
Yes.
And it doesn't work.
Yes. Well, it's because that area is going to be hurting so much,
Yeah.
She's not going to be able to run as fast.
Fake Shireen's going to die. I think Gilly might die.
She's going to the crypts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think definitely somebody...
I think it's going to be Gilly and fake Shireen. Geordie Shireen.
Davos, does he live?
I think he lives until the end and then he gets killed. So let's lift it out. Brienne, we're thinking Theon.
Yeah.
We're thinking Gilly and fake Shireen. Who else are we thinking? Lyanna Mormont.
Yeah.
And Grey Worm. And Gendry. Gendry is more of a perhaps, I think.
Yeah. Arya's going to be really, really mad about it. She's like,
yeah.
God, if only we just kissed.
Maybe, oh, fuck, I forgot. I was going to say it, then I forgot.
Ed?
Yeah, I was going to think Dolorous Ed.
Oh, what about Tormund?
I think he'll survive, honestly. I think he'll keep kicking.
I hope he survives. He
Yeah.
does provide so much comic relief that it's just...
We need something.
Yeah. It's so dour and sad. It's just...
But yeah, I think that's our list.
Brienne's death is gonna really hit hard. Because Theon, it almost feels like...
It's a natural conclusion to his arc.
Yeah. Brienne, it's just, it's gonna be sad. I'm gonna feel bad. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna catch them feels.
Yeah. And I think Gilly and fake Shireen will be the shock value deaths. I think Grey Worm will hit quite hard because his and Missandei's relationship seems one of the most genuine in the show.
Yeah.
And I think Dolorous Ed, if he dies, then that's just the end of the Night's Watch, isn't it? End
He's
of an
the
era.
Lord Commander, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, it's probably already ended now that the wall is gone. So.
Yeah. So, if we forget anyone when you're listening through today, Chris, please add it to the list that I've just sent you.
Yes, will do.
But that's what I'm predicting next episode.
Yeah, it's going to be rough.
Yeah.
Are you prepared?
Yeah, I got this.
All those White Walkers. There was a lot of them. All with fabulous hair.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them. It's gonna be tough. But
we've got this.
But that and Avengers Endgame is coming out.
Oh
We're
shit,
gonna cover
God.
that as
so
well.
many deaths.
Yes. The Avengers are finally going to be avenging something. Which is
Avenging the deaths of half the population of the universe.
Yes.
You know, pretty high stakes.
Yes. I'm so excited. All right, that is it for this episode of Lore Friendly.
Join us next week when we talk about death. All of the death.
And also...
some more death.
Life.
With Avengers Endgame.
Yes. All right. Talk to you then.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.